So this class is about using the MELT method to eliminate low back pain. Low back pain is one of the most common reasons why people miss work, and it often sends them to the doctors. Chronic low back pain can really slow you down. There was a study done a few years ago, and it's called The Effect of the MELT Method on the Thoracolumbar Connective Tissue. And what the researchers concluded was that participants who did MELT for 4 weeks had remarkable results, including reduced pain, increased flexibility, and a decrease in the thickening of the connective tissue, which I'm thinking leads to extra stiffness in the body. So we're going to do the MELT moves that were done in the study. We're going to start with a softball treatment. We'll just do the mini softball treatment, so you'll need your softball from your hand and foot kit, and then you'll need your round roller. And then from there, after we do the foot treatment, we'll do a rebounce treatment. We'll do the upper body compression sequence, a lower body length sequence, which will include hip to heel, and a low back release, which is one of my faves. And then we'll do a lower body compression sequence. So it's going to be the back and thigh glide and shear, little calf work, and inner and outer thigh. And in between that, we'll take some time to do assessments as well, just to see how your body is coping with the changes. And hopefully, I'll be showing you some ways to get rid of that low back pain that troubles you occasionally, or hopefully not, but chronically, right? It's really a bad deal when you have to slow down what you want to do because you just can't move well. So let's go ahead and start with an assessment, and you'll have your nice softball close by. I'm just going to leave mine right here on the floor, and I'm going to stand on up. Okay, so your feet are going to be hip distance apart, your arms are going to be by your side, and your toes are going to be pointing straight ahead. See if I can do that right into the camera. Okay, all right, so from here, you're welcome to close your eyes and turn on your body sense. So rather than using your sense of touch or your sense of sight, you're really coming into your body to understand how your body feels. So think about the weight of your body and your feet, and just notice if one foot feels like it's heavier into the floor than the other foot. I want you to give your body a scan and just ask yourself to consider the joints of your body. Do your ankle joints feel a little tight or a little painful? How about your knees? Think about your hips. And then, of course, the low back. Thinking about your shoulders and your neck. So just get a sense of how everything is held together through your connective tissue system, and know that dehydration in the system can create a lot of stiffness and compensation of movement because you've lost the range of motion in one area of your body. So another area of your body has to really pick up the slack and do extra work. Okay, so with all that in mind, we'll keep that assessment really simple. We're going to take this nice softball. I'm going to place that under position number 1, which is right in the center of my foot. And I'm going to settle my body weight onto the ball completely. I'll tip my body weight side to side. So Sue says to do this about 3 or 4 times, tipping from side to side, just to find some tolerable pressure and to soften that plantar fascia at the bottom of your foot. So from here, I'm just going to hang out, and I'm going to take a breath and just relax. Quite simply, all we need to do from here for the mini softball foot treatment is move the ball back into position number 5. So I act like I'm going to put my foot into a shoe, and then I find that spot not on my heel but just before it, and I'm going to go ahead and combine, add my body weight onto that ball, where I'm just going to take a nice focused breath. So it's position point pressing on position number 5. I'm going to take my body weight back onto my left foot and ease some of that body weight on my right as I go into my glide. I'm moving the ball back and forth, and I like to see that ball on both sides of my foot as I move across position number 5. I'm going to zigzag onto my heel, and then I'm going to come back to position number 5. From here, I'm going to settle a little bit more body weight on my foot, and I'm going to shear. So shear is when you break up that dry and viscous fluid that accumulates in the connective tissue, and you're also adding some bubbles into the fluid inside your fascia system, inside those little filaments that hold the fluid. That gives you more space. Frankly, that gives you more room inside your connective tissue. So from here, I'm just going to hold my foot still on the ball, take another nice focused breath, and come off the ball. I'm going to bring the ball up to position number 2, so that's right underneath the ball of my foot, in line with my big toe. And I'm going to press the ball into that knuckle and bring my foot forward and let the ball roll back towards my heel. I'll do it again this way so you can see how the ball travels right to my heel. I'm in my second toe, and I'm going to bring the ball back to my heel, and I catch it in between my foot and the floor. Moving on to my third toe knuckle, I'm going to push the ball into the knuckle and then bring my foot forward on the ball, and the ball rolls right back to my heel. Same thing with my fourth and fifth toes. And then after you've done those, you can do it a few more times anywhere you like. Eye gaze is straight ahead. And then after that, we're going to take our ball and do that little friction. The thigh is going to be nice and loose. The ball is light underneath the foot, and it travels like a little scribble all over your foot. From here, you can take your right foot onto the floor, and you can take a moment just to assess any changes that you see. And then I'm going to take my ball underneath my left foot. So the same thing, in the center of the foot, position number 1, I'm going to tip my body weight side to side. So in the book, it says about 3 to 4 times. And then I'm going to settle my body weight onto the ball, and I'm just going to take a focused breath. Simply just move the ball back to position number 5, take a focused breath, and push the ball into that spot. Ease your body weight off the ball, and we'll go right into gliding. So this mini treatment's really quick. You're in and you're out. Come back onto your heel when you're ready. Bring it back into position number 5. Send a little bit more body weight onto your foot and give me a shear. So you're adding more volume to your connective tissue by giving yourself those bubbles. And then you're going to go ahead and stop, and you're going to wait. I'm going to take my foot completely off the ball, bring the ball back to position number 2 with the ball of my foot, and I'm going to press the ball into my foot. I'm going to keep it kind of pancaked as I move it back towards my heel. So do that again for the second toe knuckle, and the third, and the fourth, and the fifth. And then just a few more times anywhere you like. Once, and twice, and 3 times. And then I'm just going to go on to friction. Friction is when you move the ball underneath your foot and your thigh is shaking. So we're pulling that fluid up into the front line and the back line and the lateral line and the spiral line and your arm lines within your connective tissue. All right, let's take the ball underneath your right foot. Let's just do a quickie friction here. I love doing it twice. Once on the right, once on the left, once on the right, once on the left. One more time on the left side. Okie doke. So from here, I'm just going to do another little assessment. Feet are back to their side-by-side parallel position. Arms are by your side. And just come into your body and just notice how you feel. I always love to watch people in class do this. They always take this nice big I just feel like they've let go of a lot of stress and strain that they were holding in their whole body, not just their feet. So I'm going to think about the weight of my body and my feet. I'm going to notice if the feet feel a little bit more evenly weighted to the floor. And then we just did this simple body-wide assessment where we came up into all the joints of the body. And we just think about, do we have any pain in our ankles, our knees? Ideally, everything just feels like it has a little bit more room to move. The muscles just feel nice and relaxed. And we're ready to move on. Okay, so from here, let's come down onto the floor. We're going to move on to the rebalance sequence, and I might as well take off my pretty scarf. And we're going to go onto the roller, the lengthwise position. But before we do that, we're going to assess your alignment. So I'm going to come down onto the floor or your mat if you're a little bit more organized than I am. Palms are turned up towards the ceiling, arms and legs are extended. This is your rest assessed position. We know that there are places in the body that love to hold on to stuck stress or dry tissue. That would be in your diaphragm, your rib cage, and your pelvis. And when you're holding on to stuck stress, there are 4 common areas of imbalance that we all share: the shoulder blades, the bottom of the rib cage, the pelvis, and the back of your thighs. So let's ask some questions and see if you can figure out if you have any imbalances in your body today. So ideally, the shoulder blades feel wide and flat on the floor, but you might notice that the shoulder blades feel like they're poking into the mat underneath you. You can scan your arm lines. Notice if they feel evenly weighted right and left. Notice your hands, ideally the back of the hands resting on the floor, but for some of us, it's the pinky edge that's resting on the floor. Just notice. Travel into the bottom of your rib cage by taking your finger, poke it into your belly button, draw a line straight through your body. Before your line hits the floor, it bumps into the bottom of your rib cage. And notice at the bottom of the rib cage is a nice weighted mass on the floor. That would be ideal. That would mean you don't have any stuck stress in the ribs. But for most of us, it lifts away from the floor in hyperextension of that thoracic spine. Travel down into the low back and notice that it's also probably lifted off the floor. Sometimes I do have clients, especially men, where the low back is smack dab flat on the floor. So just notice where you're at today. And then travel into the pelvis. Ideally, you're weighted on your butt cheeks, but you might notice that you're on your tailbone or the back of your pelvis. That can lead to a lot of hip pain, including low back pain. Excuse me. And you can end up with sciatica or SI dysfunction, all kinds of things. From here, travel down into the backs of your thighs and just notice if they're resting on the floor. You might get a little bit of weight on the back of your thighs today if that's an area that troubles you. We're going to be doing hip to heel. So ideally, the back of the thighs are weighted like masses evenly to the floor, but for a lot of people, they're not. And then divide your body in half, top to toe. Ask yourself if you feel longer or heavier on one side. So that's your autopilot assessment. And you're just checking in to see if the nervous system has a good connection to the center of gravity in your pelvis. And if it doesn't, then your balance is going to be off. That's actually a really easy thing to fix, and we're going to do that right now. So I'm going to take my roller onto the floor, and I'm going to settle my length of my spine on the roller. And you always want to make sure that your head is completely on the roller. I'm having a wardrobe malfunction today. Palms, forms, and elbows are down on the floor, and just let the back of the shoulders get nice and heavy. Don't be in a rush to start your gentle rocking. See if you can feel comfortable and organized on the roller. Your toes are pointing away from you, but your knees and hips and feet are in that neutral hip distance alignment. And when you're ready, start to gently rock your body right and left. And you might notice that when I go to one side or the other, that the opposite arm is lifting away from the floor, not because I'm raising my arm, but because the shoulder is stable. And so it just naturally floats away. And that will eliminate any tension that I accumulate across the front of my shoulder into my chest. So keep the shoulder in a nice neutral position. So we're sending some fresh fluid through the spinal column, attending to our balance. And then I'm going to have you come back to center. And we'll move into tuck, tilt, and neutral. The heel of the hand goes on your hip bones. The fingertips are to the pubic bone. And from here, I'm going to drop my low back curve down onto my roller. You know, if somebody has pain in their low back, I'm always really cautious with this one. So just be careful. If you are having a low back issue, you want to go just to your most comfortable range. So from here, my low back is down on the roller. The heel of my hand is down a little bit. The tips of my fingers are up a little bit. Great time to kind of check on whether or not you're holding extra stress and strain in through the legs. Try to avoid the temptation and push your feet into the floor or squeeze through the back of the thighs and glutes. So I'm getting ready to move into my tilt position. Just one more little check here in the tuck. Just make sure you can feel the ribs are weighted down onto your roller. Now I'm going to ease my low back curve away from the roller, and really frankly, everything ends up coming up. So at this stage, it's the tilt position. I'm just moving everything away from the roller. For most of us, it will just happen automatically because the tissue is dry and tight and sticky in your back, so it's hard to differentiate one area from another. In this position, the tips of my fingers drop down, the heel of the hand comes up a little, and then I'm going to ask you to go back down into your tuck position, again, nice and easy if you have any pain, and identify the weight of the ribs. And now we are going to work on that differentiation of movement from the thoracic spine to the low back curve, which is going to lift away from my roller. It's just a little teeny weeny move. And then it's often my case that I feel like I'm still really on the back of my pelvis. So I just pick my hips up and just reset them. It's not a big deal. I just kind of lift and lower. And what I find is I can get the heel of my hand and the tips of my fingers to be more level, which tells me that my pelvis is neutral. There's this nice lift through my low back curve, and my thoracic spine is on my roller. The next thing that we do from here is the 3D breath breakdown. One hand to the chest, one hand to the belly, and try not to overthink this. You're just tapping into your body's respiratory system. You're going to take a couple of breaths in and out and just notice, ideally the ribs are moving up towards the ceiling and down towards the roller. And then when we're ready, bring the hands to the sides of the rib cage. I like to put a little gentle pressure on the ribs. Inhale to expand. And ideally, you're feeling the ribs move out nice and wide. Maybe some of that work we did last night will help you with that expansion today. From here, we move into the lengthwise position, one hand to the throat by your collarbones, the other hand way down to the pubic bone. And I'm just going to take a couple of easy breaths. And just notice that the hands are moving away, ideally, from the middle of my body. Very subtle. You might notice there's a little gentle rocking that happens when you do that. And that's just your nervous system getting recalibrated with the center of gravity. Okay, come on back to your belly with your hands. And let's take a 3D breath. So you'll inhale, exhale, and pull your belly button in. Give me a noisy breath. Shh. Once you've found your core, turn off your noisy breath and see if you can still find that core. From here, your hands go on the floor again. You could do another little set of gentle rocking if you like. Come on back to center when you're ready. Lengthen a leg and slide off the roller. Okay, give yourself an opportunity to reassess from the rebalance sequence. So you're just checking in, right? That really doesn't have that much to do with connective tissue. It's really about your nervous system. It's about rebalancing your nervous system. It's such a great thing to do about an hour or so before you go to bed. It really helps to relax the body. So from here, palms are facing towards the ceiling, arms are long by your side. Just ask yourself how you feel. Just notice if you feel like the shoulder blades are a little wider and a little flatter against the floor. Notice if your hands feel like they're a little flatter to the floor at the back of the hand. It's okay if you don't notice dramatic changes. A subtle change is moving you in the right direction. Take your finger, poke it into your belly button. Just notice if the back of your rib cage is nice and weighted to the floor, or is it getting there? I'll take that, even if it's moving in the right direction. That's a good change. From here, the low back curves lifting away, and you're hopefully settled on the butt cheeks. So some of us are going to be still on the back of your pelvis. Don't worry about it, even if you're just moving again in the right direction. That's a plus. The back of the thighs, yeah, ideally they'd be on the floor, but like I've said before, that's a tough place to change. Let's see if we can get into that today. The last thing we do here is divide the body right and left, and just notice if you're feeling a little bit more evenly weighted side to side. And that's a huge plus. That's a really nice change, because if you feel longer and heavier on one side of your body, that's the way your body moves. And then you'll end up with this really imbalance in your body where one side's getting stronger and the other side's getting weaker. So we want to get it to be nice and even. Okay, I'm going to move on to the upper body compression sequence. We did this the previous video, so we're just going to do a little work through the thoracic spine. I'm going to take the roller kind of low on my ribs. My hands are going to be behind my head. The elbows are just relaxed. My feet are a little bit further away from my hips. Pull your belly button in to stabilize the core as you pick your hips up. When you're ready, bend your knees, and your knees are going to be right over your feet, and the roller should be right across your shoulder blades. I'm going to hold that tuck and let my hips come down onto the floor. Let's explore just rib length today. I'm going to let the back of my shoulders come over the other side of the roller. My head doesn't change. So in other words, I wouldn't want to lift my chin because that gives me a false sense of extension. I just want to see what my rib cage is allowing me to do today. And then pull your belly button back in, pick your hips up, and I'm going to start to move against my roller. My eye gaze is going to go towards my thighs, and it's not because I've dropped my chin, it's because I'm flexing through my spine. So move against the roller, See if you find a place that needs to be sheared. I'm going to go smaller and smaller. Stop, send my hips to the floor and do a little scratch side to side. Magic number in melt is 3, so we do about 3 or 4 or 5 of those. Come on back into the center when you're ready. Pull your belly button in, pick your hips up. Let's move the roller a little bit lower. And this is compression now underneath the shoulder blades towards the bottom of my rib cage. Smaller and smaller until you stop. Send your hips to the floor and scratch. Come on back to center when you're ready. Pull your belly button in. Bring the roller up nice and high. And let's do a little bit of compressing here. So compression means that we're just pushing into the tissue. It's kind of like a shear technique, right? Pushing into that tissue. Go ahead and settle your hips on the floor. Continue to push and you scratch. And this is where you build up that bubbly fluid and break up any dryness. Come on back to center. Let's rinse. Pull your belly button in, pick your hips up, and push the roller down your back nice and slow. Your butt will come to the floor, the legs will lengthen, and then I'm going to bend my knees rather quickly to return the roller to my upper back. I go down nice and slow, and pull it up really quick. One more time. Okay. I'm going to return my roller to the bottom of my rib cage so that I can really get myself set up for the assessment of rib length. I'm going to pull my belly button in to pick my hips up, and I'm going to move the roller a little bit more towards my shoulder blades. I'm going to hold that tuck, and I'm going to send my hips down onto the floor. Now, extend your upper back over the roller, and you'll see that you can get a lot further back. So that's really all there is to it, but it's really quite remarkable how the body changes, how it responds to this newfound movement. And then come on back up. And really, that's the key, because if the, if the upper back isn't moving well, in other words, you're not getting that extension through the thoracic spine, then the low back is going to have to be more mobile. It has to be mobile somewhere. And you'll see that in people, like one area of their body will be really tight and another area will be hypermobile. And what we want is a more even sense of responsibility between those spaces and masses, okay? Okay, so the next thing on my list is going to be the lower body length sequence. So you'll know this one. It's SI joint shear, bent knee press, and hip to heel. So I'm going to come back down onto the floor on my back. My knees are going to stay bent. Let's see, maybe I should go this way. Okay. So I'm going to pull my belly button in. Can you see me well enough? I'm going to pull my belly button in, and I'm going to pick my hips up and move my roller underneath the back of my pelvis. So make sure you have the roller in the right spot. You can take your thumbs onto your hip bones and then draw your fingertips down towards the roller, and ideally your fingertips are going to be on the top curve of the roller. Another thing that will give you a little help as to where the roller goes is if you bring your knees into your chest and the roller feels like it's coming out from underneath you, then the roller's too low. So you want to make sure that you have it in just the back of your pelvis, the biggest, boniest part of the back of the pelvis. So I'm just going to hang out here just for a sec. Heels are nice and heavy. If you get any tension in your hip flexors, I suspect that this knee is probably too much towards the ceiling and not angled in towards your body. So it's a little bit more relaxed. So when we do Pilates, we're kind of here in this position, and that puts a little stress and strain on the hip flexor. You can feel that with your fingers. And then when you let it go, that hip flexor will release a little bit. So this is really the ideal position. The weight of the body is on the back of your pelvis. I like to bring my hands onto my chest, and that'll keep me from differentiating. It'll keep me differentiating movement from the ribs to the pelvis. So I want to keep my ribs pretty still. My knees are going to come over to the right and to the left. And I always think, okay, this is 1 o'clock, 12 o'clock here in the center, 11 o'clock to the side. So I want to keep it within that 11 to 1 o'clock range. I'm just feeling the tissue at the back of my pelvis. Sometimes it will feel a little different for folks on one side versus the other side. You can really choose to do either side, but if you do feel a little bit of tenderness, start on that side. So I'm going to bring my knees a little bit over to the right because I do have a little tenderness on the right side. I'm going to keep my hips weighted to the roller. My thoracic spine is nice and heavy to the floor. My shoulders are relaxed. And I'm going to draw 3 little circles with my knees together. And then I'm going to draw 3 circles with just my right knee. And just notice how that feels as you draw your circles. You could have a little tightness in one hip or the other. Reverse the direction of the knee circle when you're ready. And march your knees. One knee comes in, one knee comes away. And this can be a relatively big move, but make it nice and slow. And again, if you have that hip flexor issue, maybe keep it a little bit smaller so you're not going to strain that hip flexor. Sometimes it's kind of hyper dominant for people, and I suspect that's because the core doesn't fire that well. So the hip flexor goes, oh, I'll take care of everything. I'll do everything. My mother's that personality. I'll take care of everything. Okay, so from here, I'm just going to let my knees come over to this 1 o'clock side. And when you're ready, nice little exhale to stabilize the core, keep the ribs heavy, and move your knees over now to the 11 o'clock side. And then, of course, if you had pain on this 11 o'clock side, you could start here. It's exactly the same sequence, 3 circles with the legs together, and then 3 circles just with the left leg now. And I'm hydrating this left hip socket, and reverse, and march. Nice and slow. Don't be in a rush. Your connective tissue likes to be handled gently. The knees are going to come back to this 11 o'clock side. Exhale to engage your core and bring it right back into the center. Okay, so from here, we're going to move on to bent knee press. I'm going to take my right foot to the floor, and I don't want to change my low back, but I want to bring my knee in just a little bit. So sometimes when I see people bring this knee really close to the body and they sort of collapse into the low back curve. So just allow that low back to stay in its neutral position. And you can take your hands wherever you're comfortable. If you like being here at the back of the thigh, or you can be on top of the shin. So I'm going to exhale to engage my core and pull my belly button in, and I'm going to tuck my pelvis. So that means my pubic bone is going to come up towards the ceiling a little bit, and I'm lengthening the tissue on the front of this right thigh. So I'm pulling my knee away from my hip. I'm going to inhale to release, belly button to spine on my exhale. Pubic bone pulls up towards the ceiling, and I'm in my tuck, and my knee is going to pull away from my hip. This is where I feel the stretch, right at the front of that right thigh. I inhale to release, and one more time. Exhale to engage. Pubic bone comes up, I'm in my tuck. So this side, I'm not really pulling too much. I'm just kind of letting things hang out here. And I'm really thinking more about what's happening on the right. So I'm lengthening the fascia on the front line, and then I'm going to go ahead and release. And when you release it, that's when the fluid comes into the system. I'm going to take my left foot to the floor, and I'll do the same thing here on the other side. So either at the hamstring or the shin, your foot, your knee, and your hip are in alignment here on this, left side. And I'm going to be in my most neutral position here on the roller. Ribs are weighted to the floor. I'm going to exhale to pull my belly button in. The pubic bone pulls up towards the ceiling. And now I'm thinking about the length of the front of the left leg. My hands are just gently wrapped on the right thigh. There's really not a whole lot of pull here. The work is here. I'm going to inhale to release, and that's where the fluid moves back in on the release. Inhale, exhale to pull your belly button in. Lengthen through the leg by tucking your pelvis, and then release, and let's do it one more time. Exhale to engage the core. Pubic bone comes up to the ceiling, and then you feel that length through that left leg. The hip to the heel is pulling, the hip to the knee is pulling away. All right, so I'm going to take my foot back down onto the floor. Engage your core, because you're going to bridge up, and you're going to take that roller out from underneath you. Okay. So let's go ahead and just assess how you feel. And we're going to come back up onto that position in just a second. All right, so from here, let's move on and let's do back 5. So I'm going to take the roller underneath the back of my legs, and I'm going to extend my legs over the top. Let's make sure I have enough room here. Just barely. Okay, and I'm just going to go, let your hips stay down on the floor. Your heels are going to stay on the floor. The legs are nice and relaxed. You're just going to open out, turn your toes, and pull the legs back together. Let the legs open out, toes turn out, and then come back together. I'm scraping the back of my thighs against my roller. My ankles are nice and relaxed. And I'm just gonna hang out, and I'm just gonna hold that right there. I'm gonna take my roller just a little bit further down the back of my thighs, and let's do it again. 1, 2, 3. And then one more time. Just a little bit lower, and open and close. 1, 2, and 3. And then hang out and wait. Let the legs be nice and heavy on the roller and just relax. Okay, so from here, I'm going to move my roller just a little bit further down, and I'm in my calf. And I'm going to take my right foot and cross it over my left so that the left calf is nice and heavy on the roller. And this is going to be your calf glide and shear. So what you want to think about here is just letting the calf be very heavy and relaxed on the roller. And you want to maintain contact with your calf on the roller as you bend your knee. In other words, I wouldn't want to work too hard to keep the contact between the roller and my calf. I just want it to be nice and easy. Keep your ankle really relaxed. So oftentimes I'll see people kind of pull their feet into this flexed position, and that just creates a lot of tension in your calf. Keeping your ankles relaxed will keep the calf muscle nice and loose. And that's what you're after. So as I move against the roller, sometimes I feel like I need to move it up a little or down a little. Sometimes I move my feet to the right or to the left. Just notice where you're finding the most tension. So I'm going to start to focus in on my barrier, which is right about here. And I'm starting to go smaller and smaller. So I'm pushing fluid into a dry spot, and then I'm going to hold here, and I'm going to come across that dry tissue by moving my legs back and forth, side to side. And then I'm going to hold it still. You have another shear technique, which is rotating through that bottom ankle. And then I'm going to hold it here, and I'm going to wait. When you're ready, uncross your legs and recross. So I'm going to take my left ankle on top of my right, and I'm going to let this right calf be nice and relaxed as I start to bend and straighten. And I'm kind of looking around. I'm moving the roller, I'm moving my leg, and I'm going to just kind of find a sticky spot. And it's right about here. So it's in a different place here on this right calf than it was on the left side. And I'm just gonna gently massage that tissue. I'm just finding that barrier and starting to go smaller and smaller and smaller. And then I'm gonna stop, and I'm just gonna hang out here for a second. Now, if it was in a place that was really painful, then please move the roller so that it's comfortable for you. You don't want to be hurting yourself doing the melt method. Remember, no part of the melt should hurt you unless we get to the inner thigh, which we're going to do next. Okay, so I'm going to start to move my leg side to side. I'm here all by myself, but I'm making myself laugh. And I'm going to hold my leg still and circle through that right ankle. And then I'm going to hang out, and I'm going to wait. From here, I'm going to roll over onto my side, where I'm going to do inner thigh. So the arch of my foot is going to come up onto the roller, and my leg is going to drop down, and my knobby knee is on this side, your side of the roller, and then I'm going to extend my leg. So I want to feel like I've got it, just kind of in that the white meat of my inner thigh. The roller comes up to about the height of your eye, and then it angles away from you. Your hand is going to come down onto the floor to support you. You move from shoulder to hip towards the roller and then back. You can take your big toe and plant it on the floor and kind of swirl around with your heel, and that'll give you some different landscape on that inner thigh and front of thigh, right above your knee, to kind of figure out where you need to do a little bit of work. So again, you're looking for your barrier. You start with the glide to just explore the tissue to find the barrier. Once you find it, you don't need to keep rolling over it. Just go smaller and smaller until you stop. And then you're going to hang out here and just lift your foot, bend your knee, and straighten. So this is my shear technique. There are 3 shear techniques. You don't need to do them all. But on this first position, I'll go ahead and show all of them to you. The heel is going to come to your hip. The second shear is to bring your foot up and then down. No pain in your low back. So this one can be tricky for people. They kind of get a little hypermobile through the hip when they do this. So try to keep the hips relatively still and just move through the femur. And then the last shear technique is to let your foot stay on the floor and just give it a little up and down scratch. And I usually make this movement with that sound when I do it. Okay, and then I'm just going to hang out here and I'm going to wait. Let's do one place on the inner thigh, just a little bit further up. So from here, I'm just going to roll over. And oftentimes when I teach this, I'm in this position where I'm kind of in a sternal position. But what I have found is that this position doesn't always work for people that have low back issues. So I'm actually compressing here in my low back. So I'm going to invite you to have your head down on the floor. That'll give you a little bit more length in the low back. And the same thing, oftentimes people just kind of move the hip. But what I want you to try to do is just kind of slide a little bit closer to the roller and a little bit away. So there's a little bit more movement through the whole body. Looking for trouble here. I'm kind of in the middle of my inner thigh. We'll just do 2 places. Right there. Smaller and smaller until I stop. And I'm going to lift my foot off the floor and I'm going to bend and straighten. Just enough room with my cabinet there. And let's do 2 shear techniques. So the second one, I'm just going to keep my heel close to my hip and I'm going to turn my foot up towards the ceiling and back down. So you don't have to do all 3. You could do 1 or 2. And then I'm going to let my leg come to the floor and just take a little breath and let everything just relax. And this is when the magic happens. This is when we're making changes on that cellular level. So I'm going to go ahead and flip myself around. You can do whatever you want. I suppose if you're going to be watching your computer, you probably want to do the same thing that I'm doing. Just kind of flip your body to the other side so you can continue to watch. Okay. So from here, the foot goes onto the roller, my leg drops down, and the roller is going to be kind of about the height of my eyes, and then I kind of just push it away from myself so that I have a little bit of room to put my top hand. I'm going to take my leg, and I'm going to bring it onto the floor. Okay, shoulder to hip, I'm going to move to my roller and push back, and I'm going to use my hand to push myself back. My toe can stay onto the floor and my heel kind of moves around a little bit as I move against the roller. And that just allows me to get a little bit more on the front of my thigh. And I'm looking at that tissue just above my knee. So when I broke my leg a couple of years ago, I had an awful lot of cellulite that had developed, I suppose, as an effective inactivity around my knee and inner thigh, and so the melt method was really helpful to get that cellulite to disappear. Just keep thinking we should do a cellulite challenge this spring. Smaller and smaller until you stop. Let your foot come off the floor when you're ready, and we'll do the 3 shear techniques here. The first one is just the bending and extending, and oftentimes this is when you'll really notice that connected tissue in not such a good way. And the heel is going to go close to your hip. Your foot's going to come up towards the ceiling. And you're getting a little bit more to the front of your thigh. And then the last shear technique is to have your foot on the floor and you just scratch the inner thigh against the roller. If you're rolling over a tendon, it'll feel like a little speed bump. So please move the roller in a place where you don't notice that. You don't want to irritate any tendons. And then you're going to go ahead and hang out here and just relax. Okay, so again, we're going to do just one more position for the inner thigh. I'm going to come up. I usually teach in this sternal position, But for people that do have low back pain, please just allow your chest to come right down onto the floor and kind of scooch towards the roller with your shoulder and your hip. It's very small through the shoulder. It's not a big deal. It's just I don't want you to get too much movement through the low back, especially if it hurts. So no problems for me today finding a little place here on my left inner thigh. Smaller and smaller until you stop. And you're going to take your foot off the floor and bend and straighten. We'll just do 2 shear techniques here. And about 3 or 4 or 5 of those. Heel's going to stay towards my hip. And then I'm going to bring my foot up towards the ceiling. Ouch. And then I'm going to let my foot come down onto the floor and just hang out here and relax. Okay, so now we have to rinse. So let's show you the melt method way to rinse. You could just use your hands, but I'm going to show you how we deal with the roller. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and rinse this right leg. I have most of my roller off to the left. I'm sitting on the floor so that my left knee is actually quite bent, and my body direction is pointing towards the left. We do what's called a short pass, which is pushing into the roller with my toes oriented to the left. And then I turn my toes to the ceiling and bend my knee. And I want to keep my calf in contact with the roller. I'm coming up the inside of the calf. Toes are turned up towards the ceiling, and I draw it back down. And there's a longer pass. And if you're on the floor, it's easier than if you're on, say, a carpet like I am or a yoga mat. But you're going to slide your butt with you and then slide it back. And you can get a little bit more of the calf, quite a bit more of the calf on the roller. Don't hurt your hands, don't hurt your shoulders, don't trouble your neck. The short pass is really quite good. You don't have to go into this long one. Okay, once you do the calf, let's stop and move the roller up just a little bit higher. Now in this position, you can't really bend your knee. It just doesn't have the same kind of geometry. So just have that leg on the left side extended a little bit more, and you're just gonna move in that short pass position. It doesn't go very far, and that's really fine. My hair is interesting today. Okay. And then I could do the long pass by letting my butt slide along the floor. Remember, you want to come up the inner thigh and down the back side. And again, this is really great for the cellulite that we see on the backs of other people's thighs. I'm not going there. I'm not looking back there. Okay. All right. Same thing other side. So starting with your calf and the inside of your calf, I'm going to be oriented to the right. Most of the roller is off to my left side. I'm going to start with that short pass. And I'm just going to move the roller up the inside of my calf and down the back. And we go that way because that's the way the fluid moves. It goes up the inside and down the back. And then if you want to do a longer pass, you slide to the roller. But I don't want you to hurt yourself. If you're not comfortable doing that, the short pass is fine. Okie doke. Move it up to your inner thigh. So I'm going to come up my inner thigh. I'm just going to do my short pass. So my butt stays pretty still. It's really kind of just this shifting of your hip here on the left side. Or slide towards the roller and pull it on back. Ankles are nice and relaxed. Feels great. Okay, so I have really one more thing that I want to do for you today. Let's have you come back down onto your mat or your carpet and give me one more little assessment here. Just check in to see how you're feeling. Check on the shoulder blades, check in on the bottom of the rib cage, the pelvis, and the back of your thighs. Okay, I wanted to give us just a little bit of a break because we're going to go on to a low back decompression and then hip to heel. So check in on the back of your thighs just to see how they feel. And let's see if hip to heel gives you any relief. And then the low back decompression is just a great way to give yourself more space in the lumbar spine. So the discs of the lumbar spine have a little bit more room to move. You're going to come down onto your back again. Bend your knees. Take the roller underneath your bent knees. So move back a little bit. Engage your core, pick up your hips, and send the roller to the back of your pelvis. Let's bring your knees in. Engage your core, let your knees come in. Okay. I love this position just in general because it lets the thoracic spine find weight onto the floor. It's kind of like that child's pose or shell stretch, but your hips are lifted and you're on your back. But it's a nice and passive way to move through the connective tissue. So take your hands onto your thighs. And from here, avoid the temptation to hike up your shoulders, but I just want you to kind of straighten out your arms a little bit. There's still going to be this angle of the legs in towards the body, so you don't have to be too far away, which could put that strain on those hip flexors. So just a place where the arms can be relatively straight. And the back of your pelvis is lifted away from the floor, so you have a little bit of space back there. And the thoracic spine is on the roller. So from here, we're going to do the tuck and tilt in this position. I'm going to take my low back curve and I'm going to pull that down towards the floor. I like to do it on an exhale. So I'm going to inhale, exhale, engage my core, and then let my low back drop. So there's a little bit of movement of the roller. And then I'm going to inhale and stay, and I'm going to exhale to release it back into what feels like more of a tilt. I also want to have a little bit of pressure of the legs onto my hands, and that keeps my shoulders low, keeps my elbows pretty straight, kind of locks in the tissue. So I'm going to inhale, and as I exhale, engage the core, and let's go back into that tuck. Let the low back reach down towards the floor. Sometimes the first few, 3 or 4, 10 of these are a little tight and sticky, so just be patient with yourself. Inhale and stay. Exhale and come on back up into what's going to feel like a tilt. So the difference between tilt and neutral is that more of my low back and thoracic spine are arching, right? There's a bigger arch, so allow that to happen if that's comfortable for you. Don't force it. Exhale when you're ready, pull your belly button in and go back into your tuck. And let's see if we can start to find our neutral. So here's my thoracic spine against the floor. I'm going to inhale and stay. And on my exhale, I'm just going to release my low back slightly. Just like you do when you're on the roller, right? For rebalance sequence. Inhale and stay, exhale and tuck. Now we're just working from tuck. Inhale, stay, exhale, and release to neutral. So notice that you're getting very precise with the movement of the low back into tuck, and then into your neutral. So once I find my neutral position, I'm going to bring my hands against my thighs. If you're starting to notice tension here, let the legs come a little bit closer to you. Avoid the temptation of work too hard here. It's just a gentle press. The back of your head is going to be weighted to the floor. You can feel the back of your hips against your roller, and your thoracic spine is down on the mat. And I want you to give me three deep breaths. So inhale, exhale, engage your core. Inhale, exhale, and one more time. Good, so this is giving you more length through the low back, and you're working through your nervous system to do it. Take your right foot to the floor, and let's move on to hip to heel. So hip to heel starts with this left knee bent. My right foot's to the floor. I can feel my big toe. I can feel the side of foot and my heel here on the right side. And I'm going to take this left leg, and I'm going to send it out at an angle. I want my knee to be straight, but I don't want my quadricep to get really tight and engaged with this particular move. So sometimes people bring the leg up so high that the quadricep has to fire. So if you keep the leg, I always think conservatively at about a 45-degree angle, I think that would be best. So right now my foot, I'm sorry, I'm kind of at a bad angle for you. Okay. So from here, I want to exhale to engage my core. I'm still in my most neutral, and I'm going to flex my foot. I'm going to inhale, and I'm going to release. I'm going to exhale, and flex. And that's where you're going to find the length at the back of the leg from your hip to your heel. Inhale to release. Exhale, engage your core. And flex your foot. And that's all there is to it. Go ahead and bend your knee and take your foot to the floor. And let's do the same thing over on the right side. So the right knee is going to bend. Your right foot is off the floor. I'm going to kick my right leg out at a comfortable angle. And I'm going to slowly bring my right leg up. I don't want to bring it so high that I start to notice my quadricep fire. So let the leg come down a little bit. Sometimes people have a tendency to hyperextend the knee. So just make sure the knee feels like it's a little bit soft. If you do have that tendency, this side wants to fire a little bit for me. So I'm just going to let it be kind of relaxed on that knee. I'm going to exhale to engage my core. And I'm going to flex my foot. And I can feel that heel to hip connective tissue connection. Inhale to release. Exhale, engage your core first. Then flex. And you're feeling that heel kind of pulling away from your hip. And then inhale to release. And do it one more time. Inhale. Exhale, engage. And then flex your foot. And then inhale and release. Go ahead and take your foot to the floor. Engage your core to bridge up. And take your hips down onto your floor. And that makes such a big difference for me. Ah, so nice. Okay, so the last assessment, we'll just run through that. Your palms are turned up towards the ceiling. Your arms and legs are extended, coming to a place of rest. Just notice how you're feeling. Notice how you're feeling energy-wise or emotions. I mean, you might just feel that the body has let go of a lot of stored negative energy, a lot of stored stuck stress. We call it the melt method. But I just find it's just very, very comfortable. After we've done the melt method, my body just feels like it's at ease. And not only my body, but my mind. So stuck stress in the body is stuck stress in the mind. So from here, shoulder blades are wide and flat and heavy on the floor. Maybe you're barely noticing them. That's a good sign. Take a finger, poke it into your belly button, draw that line straight through. Notice if you're feeling the bottom of your rib cage is weighted to the floor, or are you still feeling like you're arched up? If you're still feeling arched up, remember that little shell stretch position we did with the roller tucked under the pelvis? I think that's a winner to get the thoracic spine to respond, but I am hopeful that you kept that thoracic spine weighted to the floor when we did the low back decompression and hip to heel. From here, take your finger out of your belly button, travel down into your pelvis, and just notice if you're feeling like your butt cheeks are weighted to the floor. That would be great. And then notice the back of your thighs. Did they come down a little bit? That would be so great. So be careful about holding tension in the hip flexor when you're in a position where your hips are up on the roller and the knees might have a tendency to come up towards the ceiling. Let the knees come towards the chest a little bit, and that might help you out, okay? Yeah, divide your body in half one more time. See if it's feeling evenly weighted right to left. And I think you're good to go. So that's melt for low back pain. Those are the moves that were done during the study, and you can do those anytime you need to. I'll talk to you soon, okay? Talk to you later.